I'll start right now. Hello, everybody. It's a wonderful time to having you here. Welcome to our fourth Construction Innovation Meetup. And this time is our first international meetup promoted and sponsored by us from Climb Consulting Group. And today we have a very interesting subject that will talk about how technologies support lean construction or how they work together in a collaborative environment. My name's, for those that haven't met before or haven't participated in another meetup online we had, my name is Bernardo Etges. I am civil engineer and also co-founder at Climb Consulting Group. And since the beginning of 2020, we used to call interested professionals around architecture, engineering, and construction to talk about innovative approaches toward construction. Due to the current situation, the meetups are not happening in our office anymore, unfortunately, but now we can join together around the world and share our knowledge, the cases about implementing lean construction, technologies around construction. In our office, we used to have this meetup around the evening, so we used to have some coffee, snacks, and beer. Now, as you have like 3 different time zones, we are here in Brazil around lunchtime, in Europe and UK around middle of the afternoon, and so probably you can have a coffee or a tea, but for those that are in Asia and India, feel free to have a beer or a scotch, whatever you think better. So I also would like to invite you to follow us at our social medias here in YouTube. That's our streaming channel on Instagram and also on LinkedIn, where you share informations and all the events that we promote during the year. And get in touch with us anytime you want with suggestions and some subjects you'd like to talk with us. Today, we have here 3 great specialists relating their own journey in applying lean construction and how the technologies can support those implementations. We aim to show the importance of lean concepts and bring experience and functionalities from international projects. And we will also talk here about a startup journey applying lean construction that is VisiLean. So first off, given the word for our speakers, I will quickly introduce themselves. Bhargav Dave is co-founder and CEO of VisiLean. He has worked between the interface of digital technologies and construction for his entire career. And for sure, he'll explain a little bit more about this experience that he has. He has a bachelor degree in construction technology and master and PhD in developing digital solutions for construction management. Since 2015, VisiLean, that's the company he will present today, has grown significantly and has offices in Finland, UK, and India with customers around 7 countries. And also it's interesting to say that Professor Laurie Koskela and Professor Raphael Sachs are those very important authors about lean and being are 2 advisors of VisiLean. Another speaker we have today is Bruno Mota. He is Senior Lean Consultant and Logical Projects and Lean Director of SIPPRO. Bruno is civil engineer, has master in management and economics here in Nori in Porto Alegre, and is where we've met some years ago. He has over 12 years of experience applying lean concepts in the design and construction phases in large projects. He's a collaborative in the BIM-E initiative and works also as a teacher for Ziggurat in Spain. In Brazil, he is a lean director of SIPPRO, collaborate with lean and BIM implementations in national projects. And our third speaker is Kevin McHugh. He's Associate Director of MACE in Ireland. He's also civil engineer with master and he is currently PhD candidate in University of Huddersfield. Kevin was responsible for developing the production control system using less planner system, working with the supply chain and the MACE management teams to produce an effective system to communicate site activities through the project. It's also important to say that Kevin led MACE, the design for safety, manufacture and assembly strategy in Ireland, which allows MACE and the supply chain develop an innovative modular solutions. So we have today very important subjects in our agenda. We will talk about the Lean, we talk about startups, we talk about technology and how another approaches are integrated with Lean, Beam, and the construction environment. So thank you everybody in the audience. I think that we have already 50 persons watching us. We have almost 150 subscriptions. That's incredible. I'm very happy to having all of you here. For those that are watching us, please feel free to send your questions, comments, and histories in the chat. I will try to put all the subjects in our chat here with those specialists. So thank you very much one more time, welcome. And now I will pass the screen and the voice for Bruno Mota that is talking from UK. Bruno, please feel free and very welcome. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and joining us today.
Lovely. Hello everyone. Thank you, Bernardo, for the invitation. Very happy to be here among friends. We talk a little bit that this is not just a regular presentation. It's more like like a meetup with friends. And that is, I know you for quite a long time. Bhargav, pleasure to be here with you, sharing this meetup. Kevin, we met briefly, let's see, on the GLC, but pleasure to be here with you as well. Very nice to be here. So let's get to the business. I think we have a lot to talk about. So my idea today, as we spoke before, is to present a little bit what I'm doing, especially here in the UK, with Lean process regarding to the, especially to the design phase. And then I'm pretty sure that Bhargav and Kevin will build on that brilliantly. So just to talk about a little bit how I got here. I'm a civil engineer from the Federal University of Ceará, which is my state back in Brazil. And my first contact with Lean was around there. I was an undergrad trainee in a construction company, learn about Lean from a professor and friend of mine called Thais Alves. And I started to implement that back in Brazil, published a few papers, my first paper on the GLC in 2008 in Manchester. Then I went to the south of Brazil, did the master's, came back to my hometown, Fortaleza, and then we started doing some Lean implementations in construction sites through a company that we founded called SIPPRO. After that, SIPPRO started implementing some Beam as well in construction sites through our Lean director now, which is Paula. So during this time, from 2011 to 2015-16, we've implemented Lean in various construction sites, from small houses until complex projects in different states back in Brazil, different type of stakeholders. And then around 2016, I moved to the UK. I started working with complex projects through Jacobs. And then middle 2018, I moved to work for Logikal projects that we implement Lean project controls and project management in complex projects, not only in the UK, but Ireland, Netherlands, Hong Kong, Australia, and so on. Let's keep going. So what happened is, if I wanted to focus a little bit on the design phase of projects, but the issues on the design phase are very similar to the issues on the construction phase as well. Every time I go to a new project or a new construction company, the problems might be the same. So poor communication among stakeholders. They don't talk to each other. They do play football together. They do go for a pub for a beer together, but they don't share their P6, their schedule. So they don't know when and what to deliver among themselves. So the information is always unclear. They usually work a lot when it's closer to a delivery date. So there is no balance of workload whatsoever. And then when you face those type of problems, you have a good feel to start implementing Lean on those projects. I think, but I can see your message. I think my screen is shared.
Yeah, I will ask you, Bruno. I think your screen is not sharing. Now it's gone.
Okay, there we go. Not a problem.
Wonderful.
Lovely. So about that, let's keep going in. So yeah, let's implement Lean on large projects. So what I usually do in large projects is to implement the collaborative planning. Right? It's important to get everyone in the same room, to set the goals, to find the main phases, and to pull some key activities. Right. So basically, what happened is I get a big meeting room, put a big piece of paper on the wall, and work with sticky notes or post-its. Right. We put some weeks as the main areas of the project to to send the directors, the coordinators, or the managers, and then everyone brings their own schedule, and they start putting some post-its or sticky notes on the wall, right? And then, so for instance, the design go on and put the tasks and milestones. Cost comes and do the same thing. Risk comes and do the same thing. And what happened is, because they're always working in silos, they don't share those information with each other. So it might happen that costs might be delivering the whole budget without having all of the projects, all of the designs with it. So while they put in all the post-it notes, we keep discussing if the timescales are right. So they keep changing the post-its around the board, try to define the best way they can collaborate with each other, share information with each other to reach the deliverables on time and with a nice workload. So basically, that's how the kind of a collaborative planning should look like. The main sectors, the main deliverables, the main tasks. It is important for the collaborators to stand up, write their own sticky notes, then themselves have to put on the wall to to give this sense of responsibility and ownership of the tasks. After the collaborative planning, since you have all the dates, we'll try to do a master plan based in location if we can. So I'm a huge fan of line of balance, because you can, of course, balance all the workload, pull all the teams, and see how the work is going on. It's a little bit harder to do on the design phase, but it's working pretty well either in the UK or Brazil and other places in the world on the construction phase, right? And of course, you have to take that out of the software and print it, make it look good. But what happened here on the construction phase is that we take the information out of the collaborative planning and start doing some last planner on projects. So basically what we have is Excel spreadsheet that we put all the tasks and milestones. And weekly, we do two things. We sit down with the teams, and first we identify and start removing the constraints, right? Usually in construction sites, we do this monthly, but because of the nature of the projects here, usually in the design phase, since it's very fast, we try to have a small rhythm of control. So every week, we list all the constraints, everything they're going to need to do that task, either any information, any design, approval from someone else. And of course, we keep checking as well the commitment plan. So we keep checking if they have done that task that they should have done during the week. And we check if he's able to do the task of next week. Put in yes or no on the causes. Yes or no if they have done the task, or a letter for cause for non-completion. Right. So we have set some different causes in the project. Resource capacity, if they have late information, design change of priorities, whatever it is. So we can collect and analyze and try to deal with the main issues along the project. So every week, of course, it's important to have a kind of control. So we know week by week the PPC, the percentage of plans completed. So we can see if we are on target to the plan or not. We have the reasons for non-completion as well. So we understand what's going on, why they're not completing the task, so we can treat that and make it work better. And we know, of course, about the constraints, how many constraints they're removing on time or not. Because if they're not removing the constraints on time or not removing at all, they won't be able to do the task properly. So the whole thing might get late, right? And then from time to time, we take this information, we share this information among all stakeholders, and then we redo the whole collaborative planning session, taking out all of the processes that we have done, and then put some new ones for another horizon of time.
Bruno, let
Yes,
me ask
sir.
you one curiosity here. Is if it's right, the main problems you identify are late information and changing priorities. Is it that, the graph?
Yes. Yeah, so 59% of the graphic is changing priorities. Usually because we work with big and complex projects, the client is very big, sometimes has a lot of connections with the government, for instance. So there's a lot of changing priorities. You know, sometimes they move the dates a little bit, sometimes they move the scheme, they move the designs. So that's a main reason. And the second one, the biggest one, is late information. Which late information in this case is internal late information, right? It's something like, oh, I'm working on the cost area and I need the designs today and I won't get until next week. So I cannot start doing the budget because I don't have the designs. So I get in the information that I need late, which is good. It's good to highlight those issues because then we can sit down and say, you know what, if the designs are going late, we have to deal with it. We have to make we have to streamline the process, make them quicker, make them better. Or we need to agree another deliverable date so we don't run to delay schedules. But yeah, lovely. So after all that, of course, we can see a lot of benefits, right? Despite the fact that everything is kind of low tech, and I'm saying this because Bhargav and Kevin are going to show a lot of high tech. Despite the fact it's low tech, post-it notes, sticky notes, paper on the wall, is all about the process first, isn't it? You have to chart the process and you have to increase collaboration and bring people into the process. So based on that, we have better control. So we have weekly metrics. We have focus on activities, commitments, and constraints. So people are actually saying that, yes, I'm going to do it, or no, I cannot do it because of this and that. It's a very quality information, a very transparent information. The collaborative session runs smoothly and pretty well. I know it might sounds hard sometimes to get 20, 30 managers inside a room because it will take some of the time, but it's the opportunity that we have to visualize all the relationship between the sectors and the constraints between the sectors and the functions, whatever you call it. So it's really, really important to bring everyone in the same, in the same room and make them discuss what's going on with each schedule. Increase collaboration. Of course, people start talking more, sharing more information, dealing with the problems together. Of course, we have a better communication. Everyone was there, and with time, it starts to become a part of the organizational culture, right? So people start feeling that they have to do the weekly meetings, they have to remove constraints, they have to do the collaborative sessions because it helps them to think about the project, think about their own tasks, and they realize that everybody is working together towards the same goal. I think that's it. That's it for me. Just my last slide is just some contacts, my personal contacts, contacts of SIPPRO and Logikal, so SIPPRO Brazil and Logikal UK. More than happy to, if you guys follow us and all the stuff. But yeah, that's it.
Bruno, And now if you could just keep sharing your screen, because Edna asked for your reference and how she could contact with you.
Oh,
and now she can have your email or social networks too, because she says she's developing one startup that maybe could have some mentoring with you.
More than happy to talk.
Is here. As you started talking, it's something very nice to have when we promote those meetups, is that when you stop and see through a network and environment perspective, we are all having and joining like friends here. It's very interesting to hear it from you. So I've met you in the master when we started both in the same year, the master here in Porto Alegre. And afterwards, I met Bhargav in the IGLC, and we keep meeting throughout the years, year by year. And also Kevin came through this huge network and environment looking for improvement toward construction. So it's amazing, and it motivates us to keep going and bringing people with the same goal of making things different. I have two questions here that I'd like to drive for you. One, Juliana Queiroz asked about the pictures you showed in your presentation, if they are in projects in Brazil or in UK.
The pictures on this presentation, particularly, they are from UK. She can find more about on the paper that we published in 2019, last year, on the IGLC in Ireland.
Wonderful. And I have a question from Savio from Bruno. We have a lot of friends connected here. About what are the main barriers on the way of implementing less planner in both countries, Brazil and United Kingdom?
Oh, good question, Savio. I think the barriers are kind of the same. It's I think the main one would be the resistance to change. It's really hard to convince people, to spend some time planning, sitting down a little bit, and even the idea to spend the whole afternoon on a meeting room putting sticky notes on a wall is not it doesn't come like the best one. So I think that the resistance to change will be the worst one. What I think is that back in Brazil, it's a little bit easier to implement because we kind of work more hours in a sense. We don't care if we work on Saturdays or late in the evenings. I think Brazilian people are harder to convince, but once they're convinced, they work pretty well. And I think the British sit the other way around. It's easier to convince them because you can show the numbers, you can show the cases. So yeah, they might do. But I think it takes a lot longer because you have to be strict on your implementation. But but I think the resistance to change will be something common that is really hard to change. They've been doing the same thing for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Why change now? Right?
That's quite interesting. In the last meetup, no, it wasn't the meetup. In one of the lives I took part, someone asked me about if they have difference implementing Lean in Brazil or in another country. And yeah, it's the same opinion I have. Bhargav and Kevin has any experience of implementing Lean or some improvement in different countries or cultures that enable a different approach for those that are pushing the concept? You want to talk something?
Well, I just agree with Bruno. The resistance to change is one thing, but what we try to say is that if we keep doing the same thing and expecting different results, we're not really going to go anywhere. So that's the carrot to promote Lean. It's to show that there is a different way of construction, because if we keep doing the same model, making the same mistakes, having the same contractual arguments, we're not going to be successful. And what does help the resistance to change, as Bruno said, is that there's a kind of responsibility that people get to owning their own commitments. And, you know, if they keep making commitments and succeeding with their commitments, everybody wins in that, and that kind of grows. So when you start off, it's baby steps, but the lean methodology grows as you continue with the project.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And we have one question here from one of our guests from German Lean Construction Institute. I would say, well, a heavy guest. He asked Bruno, how long does it need to change or build a new culture through the clients and for the projects?
Sorry, but it got out a little bit. Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, sure. How long does it need to change or to build a new culture considering Lean?
Not sure. No, I'm not sure if I followed the question. How old?
How long?
No. Can you write that?
How long? How many?
How long? Sorry. How long would it take to implement things?
Yes.
That's the question.
No, to change the culture.
Oh, how long to change? That takes a while. So yeah, sorry about that. It's a mix of accents, isn't it? So I think Kevin start to to answer that a little bit. So it's almost baby steps, isn't it? You cannot go there and change the whole culture, like that, from one day to another. It's really baby steps, one change at a time. I think for you to, if I need to give some time scales, I think, I don't know, between 6 to 12 months, you may have something going on. If you define, well, your spine call, let's say, I'm gonna deal with cooperative planning and less planner, location-based planning and less planner, that should work in 3, 6, 10, 12 months. After that, you need to expand a little bit more, and Lean has a loads and loads of tools. You can full planning, Kanbans, Andons, whatever it is. So building a culture is really hard, and it's gonna take years, because then you're gonna do in a project, and then you're gonna have to replicate it in another project. If you're talking about a construction company, you're gonna have different sites, and then the construction company gonna have to change as well. So culture-wise, it's gonna take time, but baby steps. I think if you keep moving forward, and you not come back, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, I would say that changed culture takes time. We start with baby implementing some features, some tools, changing some concepts and some routines, but even make it as a strategic culture, organizational culture, it takes time. But I think that's a continuous effort of improvement and getting better index, productivity, collaboration, information improvements. So it's a long period, but I think if you go with baby steps and then you get audit steps, you get in a continuous and increasing journey. Okay. So we have some more questions. I will keep them from the end. Now I would like to invite Bhargav Dave to introduce himself and explain a little bit more about VisiLean and how does the technology from VisiLean supports the Lean implementation, as Bruno introduced through the projects he had experienced. Thank you very much, Bruno, for your presentation, explanation, and the knowledge you shared with us. Thank you. I think you should stop sharing your screen, then Bhargav can start himself.
Thanks a lot, Bruno. That was a fantastic presentation, and it's a great privilege to be here. So thanks, Bernardo, for inviting me.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny how things go, but Bruno's first IGLC, 2008, was also my first IGLC, and I was actually part of the organizing committee there in Manchester. So funny how the kind of the network effect plays a role, and we're pretty much all part of the IGLC community. So it's good to be in a company of friends here. So that's nice. Let me just quickly share my screen. Yeah. So I think the topic today, so we're talking about how technologies can support lean construction, and Bruno spoke about how to implement lean in general, and I think that was quite good to see. Lean construction fosters a lot of collaboration, implementing through design to construction and later on. So when I started in the world of construction, I wanted to bring technologies, and since last 20 years, so after I graduated from the university here in construction technology, I started looking into how to implement technology, software solutions to construction, and I did that for 5 years. And when I actually started looking at the results, what I realized was that technology on its own was not going to change much, of the end result. We were not really seeing many benefits as we had planned. And this is when I started looking into the world of lean. When I actually had moved to England, I was working in a construction company there called Pochins, trying to change their processes, trying to improve their processes. And that's where sort of my lean journey started. And somehow by chance, I came into contact with Professor Logikal. And as some of you and quite a lot of you would know, that he's one of the founders of the lean construction sort of group, and he developed the TFP theory behind lean. And this is when I started to look into how technologies can help lean, because what I saw was that lean can provide a very good platform for collaboration. So your process and your people management is handled quite well through lean, and then technology will enable and improve the situation. So this is kind of a bit of a context behind how the thought process behind VisiLean started. I'm not going to go too much into the theory and behind lean. Bruno covered quite a lot of process implementation and how do we go about implementing lean and last planner system, collaborative planning as it's called in the UK, on construction projects. But this is something I actually, it's again funny, we go back to the 2008 conference, but I actually wrote a paper there in that conference where I spoke about the importance of aligning people, process, and technology, and the critical role of these three pillars in supporting construction and lean construction. And I think it's still true, very true today, when we actually speak about concepts such as construction 4.0, Internet of Things, drones, and capturing data from construction sites, and how that helps, for example, the process. I think it's still very important to align people, process, and technology, and focus about how do we, Bruno touched upon this, and quite a lot of questions came about this, that how do we change the culture, how do we change the culture in organizations before we actually start talking about technologies? How do we change the processes? I mean, lean, the last planner process, the collaborative planning process brings this whole bottom-up perspective. Collaborative planning is all about bringing people together in a room and getting them to discuss how we're going to do something. In our case, it's about how do we actually, how do we deliver the plan that we had originally, set out to deliver. So once we align processes and people, then the role of technology should be to enable that change and enable that sort of implementation. How do we bring people together? How do we give them the information that they need to actually do those things? And this is why we started looking into developing a system which is now VisiLean, and I'm going to talk about that a bit later. And again, fantastic to kind of have this sort of a flow. So digitalization, I believe it supports this sort of a process change in lean. As the traditional construction has followed this sort of top-down planning, which is done typically in isolation. And just if you ask simply, if you think about traditional technologies, they typically solve this transformation view that Lowry talks about, transformation, flow, and value. The traditional technology supports, they support sort of the transformation view. So you have, you're asking the software to automate the scheduling for you, and you're asking, what should I do today or next month or in 6 months' time? Rather than that, in Lean, the idea is, how do we collaborate with each other digitally to bring this sort of last planner workflow in action? So how do we build our short-term plans in a more reliable way? And if you think about COVID right now, we can't go to the sites. Quite a lot of planners cannot go to the site. How do they actually collaborate when they are remote? Think about managing constraints, look ahead planning. Bruno spoke about that. Look ahead planning in Lean. You need to take into consideration the real-time scenario of where the materials are, or where the men, do you have enough manpower? Do you have enough equipment on site to tackle those constraints? How do you manage that? And we need the technology to then support that sort of, control and help people make realistic commitments. Kevin's going to talk about that in his presentation quite a bit. And that's actually one of the key topics for his PhD. So that's quite interesting. And then when you factor in uncertainty in collaboration, all stakeholders need to come together and they need to make strategic decisions. We need to provide them through technologies this sort of single digital platform to help make them these decisions. And there are so many different names for these things, single source of truth and common data environments and things like that. The idea is to provide a single platform through which all the information is shared, so that at any point in time you go back to that platform and you make sure that the decisions you made, you're following them accurately. And so in terms of going digital with Lean, some of the key factors that we thought, is to provide this common platform to start with. It should be a visual ecosystem. And again, I go back to my experiences with Brazil. Just before this call, we were just discussing that informally. I mean, Brazil has this fantastic implementation of this visual ecosystem. And there is a very interesting connection about Brazil and VisiLean in that sense, that the idea, this sort of light bulb moment that came to me was just after Algan, who was my Algan Tezel, he's Dr. Algan Tezel now. He was a colleague of mine at Solver, and he was doing his PhD then, and he went to Brazil for capturing this. So his PhD was on visual management in Lean construction and visual management under Professor Cosquela. And he had just returned back from Brazil with all these fantastic sort of case study pictures, and how Brazil implements Lean, and Hijunka and Kanban and all that. And then I thought, that's fantastic. And I was from the technological brain, I thought, how can we connect all this with BIM? Because BIM is also a very visual sort of a platform and a technology tool. And I thought, can we actually build this sort of Kanban system, or a Hijunka system, or an end-on system using BIM? And so that's where kind of the light bulb started. And then I thought, okay, let's connect Last Planner with BIM first, and then start to build those other tools from there on. And so that became a fundamental building block in VisiLean. And the name Visi in VisiLean is actually visual, and it's based on the visual management principles. For example, end-on is very powerful there. So that's kind of one of the fundamental pillars of any Lean system, which is it should be visual. Of course, providing Lean tools and processes like pool planning, making realistic commitments, and supporting the Last Planner system and supporting Last Planners is also quite key for Lean construction systems. Designing for value, and of course, offering tools and information exactly as per the requirement of the stakeholders. So the product side of things, how it's also kind of in Lean, we solve one fundamental problem of how we are going to build something. But then the product itself, which is kind of what we are going to build, comes from the BIM side, the building information models. And I think it's also quite important. So that was based on some of our work that we did on integration of Lean construction and building information modeling. And I think if you integrate those things, you can design things for value. So you can start pulling that information and integrating that with the process information to see what you are going to build and when. So that helps. It should identify and minimize waste. So if you simplify the information flow, the traditional systems were so complex that it was just used by like 2-3 people on site, but it was not improving the information flow. So if we improve information flow by providing some simple tools, which basically support teams and team building and, communicating information with each other effectively, then that helps in identifying and minimizing waste. And I think Kevin is going to speak about that as well, because he has a fantastic case study that highlights some of those things. And then of course providing lean data about continuous improvement, because continuous improvement is a very strong pillar of lean, and we need to provide information. For example, Bruno was showing PPC, reasons for non-completion. You can also think about 5 whys and things like that. Do we provide enough data for people to actually support those sort of analysis? So that I think should help. Then I'm going to quickly switch to kind of how we designed VisiLean. I don't have so long to kind of take you through the whole journey, but I'll just give you some snippets about what we did there. This is kind of the core team. Bernardo mentioned Professor Koskela and Sachs. I was privileged to have them as advisors, and they were both my advisors when I was doing my PhD. So that was kind of quite an experience. We have quite a few other capable people in the core team here who support, who have basically supported development of VisiLean. Stefan was one of the co-researchers at Salford University when we actually started on this whole journey in 2009. And we built the prototype first there in Salford, and then we took it to the industry, got some fantastic feedback when we started sort of developing this new blast planner system based approach and visual management and so on. And then that gave us the motivation to actually make it a commercial product. So this is kind of a very brief journey about VisiLean. So 2009, the seeds were planted from research, just after Algan had come back, as I said, from Brazil, and we were discussing these things. 2012, we had the first pilot with Highways England. Again, this was from the research perspective. 2013, I finished my PhD under Professor Koskela and moved to Finland. Actually, we wrote a proposal together on research. It was called BIM for Lean, and we basically had that accepted in Finland. I moved there, and then I got a commercialization grant to actually commercialize this idea. So we formed the startup in 2015 after that project, and after that we have been then selling the system commercially and so on. So we have had a very exciting journey so far. Let's see where the future takes us then. In terms of the system, so VisiLean was it goes back even before 2009, the motivation to develop something like this. When I actually graduated out of my bachelor's course in 2001, and I had gone to construction sites as a trainee supervisor, and there was one fundamental gap that I found, was that a lot of systems are there to support people outside kind of construction project, but mainly in the head office. You have the procurement systems and you have the accounting systems and HR systems. But when you actually went to the construction site, the core part of construction, you did not have many systems. So we wanted to provide something, we wanted to develop something which actually addressed the core of the construction process. And this is where we started to get into lean construction and how do we actually digitize that. So there are core pillars into our system. Mobility being the first and foremost, because construction happens in the field. A lot of workers are there in the field. They need to provide constantly, feedback about and status updates about like what they're doing today, how much work they've completed today, if they have any problems on the site. Plus, they also need information about what they're supposed to be doing, and also making things ready. Bruno showed about kind of the make ready process. You need to, through the look ahead plan, you start making assignments to workers, but most of the times workers are in the field. How are they going to tell you whether they have made those assignments ready, you know? So we want to provide them tools when they are in the field and they kind of accept a material delivery, or if they accept, you know, some equipment being ready or space being ready, now they can tick off those boxes and say, now my task is becoming ready, you know, things like that. So mobility was a very core pillar in sort of when we designed Lean, this system, VisiLean. Collaboration being now the kind of, this is our core engine. So the collaborative part, you know, how to, Bernardo mentioned, you know, how to digitize those sticky notes. So traditionally, I mean, if there is anything traditional in Lean, but in Lean implementations, you go to the board together, you know, use those sticky notes, and you plan and you develop your short-term plans, you look at plans, your weekly plans, and so on. But how are we going to digitize that? So we have provided this sort of an engine that supports you know, this sort of collaboration. Visualization is then the other fundamental pillar, and that visualization is throughout the whole system, not just BIM, but BIM is also a very core pillar there. So, you know, you can visualize progress, and you can also you know, see that what's been planned, but also what has been achieved, and so on. And then, of course, the performance management through the dashboard, and so on. So I'll quickly go through. You know, the system is interoperable through with many other sort of external systems, so we can take in. That's another actually aspect I forgot to mention. Just because we are doing Lean, we cannot lose the sight of the big picture. I just a couple of weeks ago had a discussion with Professor Glenn Ballard about, you know, what his current thinking is, and as you know, Professor Ballard is a inventor of the last planner system, and you know, he originally developed that in 2000, and we have been discussing on and off about, you know, how to improve the last planner system over the, you know, through practice. I've seen quite a lot of Lean implementations across you know, the world, first in the UK, Finland, some, you know, many countries in Europe, US, and so on. And we've observed some sort of you know, parts where we need to improve. And one fundamental part that that we have both agreed on is that the top-down planning is missing in the last planner system, and we need to provide this sort of a holistic planning approach in the last planner system, and that's actually his current focus as well. So in VisiLean, we actually take in, or we provide tools to develop that sort of top-down plan. So either we let you import that, or then you can actually develop one from scratch in the system. The idea there is that you should not lose sight of the big picture, because if, you know, short-term plans are great, but we still need to make sure that we are actually going ahead with the project as we had planned. And so that's why we actually provide this sort of an integration. So this is where, and this is what it looks like in our system. You know, everybody who's in construction would know what a Gantt chart looks like. You know, this is a typical sort of you know, construction plan. The key difference here, though, is that, you know, all the colors show you the different statuses of what has happened. You can click on things and get information about it. If something's red, it should really capture your attention because there is some problem there. So that's about the visual management side. But then quickly from that, we can actually build this sort of a sticky notes, you know, board where, you know, you can connect that sort of a top level plan with a bottom up plan through collaboration. And you know, do your look ahead planning, your weekly planning, you know, your commitment planning, and things like that here. This is completely distributed, and people can join in remotely. Kevin is currently doing that. I think they've been running their collaborative sessions through Microsoft Teams since last couple of months through the lockdown period. So that was quite interesting to see. And then the kind of the other core fundamental here is the BIM model. So the BIM viewer, you can import models into the system and then connect them through to the plans. And you can actually interestingly go down to the daily level of detail here. So you can go down and connect tasks which are down to the daily level of resolution. And so you can get updates from the field as people say, I've completed something or I've hit a problem. The colors in the model will show, you know, they will change in real time to give you this sort of a live, you know, 4D sort of a platform. So it's kind of real-time visualization of what's happening on the ground. So as you go backwards and forwards, the kind of the model changes to show you what's happening and so on. And then the dashboard, of course, gives you, the PPC, as you can see here. You can visualize PPC not just for the whole project, but you can visualize PPC by teams, and who's doing well and who's struggling and how you can help them. You can also get, see the reasons for variance, why things are stopping or why things are not completing on time. You can see, delays and stoppages, and you can go down in, each of these to get more information. So it's kind of more rich. And this is our answer to this Excel, because everybody we know loves Excel on construction sites. And if we take this away, they'll have this sort of withdrawal symptoms. So we had to develop something. But this builds dynamic reports. They give you this ability to build reports on on the fly. You can build whatever reports you want by picking and choosing information. And then finally the app to report to first of all get the information about what you're supposed to do, so provide information back to the system about this is what I've done, and I'll update quantities and things like that. So you can do a lot of those things. Some of the customers using us, MACE there, right up there, Kevin's going to talk about that first project in the next presentation. But Veidekke is one of our customers in Norway, Alec in Abu Dhabi in UAE, another MACE project in the UK, and so on. So we have customers in several countries. In summary, very quickly, this is kind of a digital system for lean project delivery, providing a single integrated platform, visual ecosystem, lean tools, live data. So what you see is real, is live. So no latency between what has happened and what you're currently seeing. Designed for value and minimizing waste is kind of, so thank you very much. Thanks for your time, and happy to
Thank you very much, Dave. What an incredible presentation, bringing all the journey you developed, considering the lean concept and your participation with studying lean and implementing lean and going through technological solutions and bringing the bean concept. And it motivates us a lot because you see the whole history and concepts that we understand as the main concepts of the philosophy of lean construction being applied in one technological feature that can be used in our smartphones. So that's amazing. Thank you for motivating us on it. And I didn't know about that. It's very interesting to know about how the research that Algan developed around 2009, 2010 here in Brazil. It was a shared research made in Porto Alegre and also in Fortaleza, if I'm not wrong, in two companies that are still true reference about lean implementation. And that study he did at that period with Dani, I think that Dani is also connected here, well, it is still one of the main reference when you talk about visual management. Very interesting to know that it was one of your motivations to develop and draw VisiLean.
Yeah, it was an inspiration. Yes.
Very, very interesting. Good to know about that. I have several questions here, but I have one comment that I'd like to bring in the first, as a first comment of your presentation. It came from one of our, from Arua, that is one of the companies that's implementing lean nowadays in Brazil. He thought very interesting that alignment with people, process, and technology. And I'd like to ask you if that, like technology being the third part on that structure, is it like a case or just, okay, you need to bring people together, develop a stable process, and then bring the technology? What do you think?
Absolutely. Technology comes last in this for sure. And my experience has been the same. Not a lot of people know, actually, I didn't mention this in the presentation, but not a lot of people know that Professor Koskela actually started his life as a researcher looking into automation in construction and digitization back in the 80s, and he went to Japan looking at, digital technologies and things like that. But quickly, he became a little bit sort of frustrated because he saw that the processes we had and kind of the culture we had would not support the systems. And he wrote a paper. I read it after I joined him, but he wrote a paper about basically the core part was that if you actually apply technology in the wrong way, you end up sometimes reducing the productivity and not improving the productivity. So if technology is not applied in the right way, you're actually creating a template for disaster. And so in my opinion, people come first, process comes probably equally important, but second, together, and then comes technology to support those things. And it's not technology first, and then we figure out how people will use that technology. And so yes, yeah, I'll stop here, otherwise I can go on and on.
Wonderful, and it brings a link here. One question from Luca Roger from Brazil. I think that it is not a problem just in Brazil, but in other countries too, and probably you have that experience, Bhargav, is that in construction sector, we have to work with people with a lack of digital literacy, right? And how do you see that construction companies can overcome this problem in order to implement digital technology solutions or mobile technology solutions?
I think it's about simplification and using a lot of visualization, because again, I mean, I go back to the Brazilian case studies that Algan was using, but simple, very, very simple visual symbols. I mean, you use Kanban and it's like red triangle and green triangle. I still remember those pictures. You have the storeroom, just outside the storeroom, you have the green triangle, I'm okay, I don't need any more material. Or you have the red triangle to say, hey, give me more material. It's simple like that. And you need to do the same in technology. You need to simplify. If you provide complex technologies to people who are actually not, or they don't even need that complexity. So we need to simplify the complexity. Of course, it's easy to say that. So what we have done through the app is designed the app from a perspective of somebody who's going to be in the field. So you have the play button to say I'm starting something. You have the kind of the completion button there to say I'm now done. And we had one consultant in Sweden who basically said it's like literally telling them to manage construction with 3-4 buttons, and that's about it. So you need to simplify things for people like that, providing easy things to work with. And other than that, of course, training is important. We actually we worked with a local construction site. This was it's now become my favorite example, but we just converted a construction site in India. They had never used Excel even for planning. Forget about Microsoft Project. They had not used a digital tool before, ever. And the owner said, look, I've tried everything. If you can do something, this is yours. And I said, okay. And we worked with the team at the ground level, and we literally just walked them through the whole process. We just worked with them for 3 months. And then, your foremen, your supervisors, your people on the ground, first taught them about the process, then took them to the technology, and then the whole implementation was very successful. So it can be done,
Wonderful. We have 2 more questions considering like features of VisiLean. One is from Clarissa, probably you know her. Clarissa Biota is also online with us here. She asks about how VisiLean is overcoming the lack of strategic project planning in the companies. And if you have like some training for collaborative planning, or how do you provoke the companies for doing that? Or you just say, call Bruno that he'll do that for you, for example.
No. Yeah, sorry, yes, yeah, please. Yeah.
And the other question, if your dashboards bring some information about cash flow and productivity. Are questions from Santiago and from Arua as well.
Yeah, so hi Clarissa, by the way, yes. And yeah, great question. So first of all, yeah, I mean, it'll be wonderful. We call Bruno or we call you and say, hey, help us with your collaborative planning training. We get lucky.
It's the advertisement time.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the mutual partnership, Bhargav.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, sorry.
No. And the other kind of, sometimes we get lucky with people like Kevin on board. So Kevin has been a lean champion, and he has been, he was first implementing lean into the company, and then when and then he made contact with us. So it's 50-50. Sometimes we have to coach people through the whole process. Like, for example, the one that I gave about India, we sort of started at the ground level, and we're still working with them. But then there is another kind of example where people are very advanced, like Kevin is, or they really understand the last planner system. They've done the basic lean implementation, and we're just going in to support that. So that makes our life much easier. We do both. We have the pedigree in this field. I mean, quite a lot of people who are working with me here, they one of the students, one of the guys, was a student of Professor Koskela. He did his master's under him, and he's just come and joined us. So people understand the process, and they know lean construction really well before they come into the world of digital. So that really helps. But we do support companies when it comes to this. And about the dashboard, yes. So we don't have the cost information just yet. We are about to build that in our next sort of roadmap. So that's coming. So watch this space. It's coming, hopefully soon.
Wonderful. And about any productivity index or like checking
Productivity.
workers there, is it one feature of the dashboard?
Yes. So productivity is something that we can, for example, we have some other views where we actually can bring that out. So what sort of productivity trends are there? But not in the dashboard just yet. Kevin and the guys, they experimented with this a little bit. Maybe I don't know whether he wants to share that, but people are, I mean, productivity is a very complex field, and it might throw people, teams off a little bit in the beginning if they think like you're being big brother if you're tracking them, like, what's your productivity. So that could be off-putting to a lot of people. We collect all that data though. We can actually bring that out, but we have to be a little bit sort of mindful about what we show and what we don't. So yeah.
I see. Wonderful. Thank you very much for your presentation, explanation. I need to call Kevin, otherwise you take like the whole day and evening. It's some questions that I'll take for the final discussion. Thank you very much one more time, Bhargav. And now I'd like to invite Kevin to bring his presentation and talk about his case at MACE, and for sure we have a very interesting case to watch right now. Thank you. Your phone is
Hi, thank you, Bernardo, for inviting me.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Yeah, so it's very interesting listening to Bruno and Bhargav. Obviously, they talk about their lean journey back as far as 2008. I think really mine has worked from 2015. I had to struggle with the traditional building methodology for a long time in construction, and obviously, as everyone who looks into using lean sees it as an option to improve productivity in construction. So it's a great segue to go in to talk about people, which the guys touched about. We talk about people first and process to get second, and technology. So I think this is a good example, maybe from the two slides previously, of the importance of people and getting them up and to commit to their tasks and to own their projects, and really get involved and communicate with each other. So getting all stakeholders in place to discuss their process, but also their constraints, about what will work well. And the client has a big part to play in developing that culture. I work as a principal contractor with MACE, and we manage the supply chain, and we're kind of the glue between the design teams, client instructions, supply chain delivery. So we're in a good place to be able to manage all these different sequences, because in order to make tasks ready, there's often design and direction required upstream. And then we have to put the mechanisms in place to deliver the product to the right quality and in a safe environment on the job site. So what we're doing here, I suppose, is showing what the guys have explained. One is the analog version, but the other is kind of converting to a digital process where we have all these people, not necessarily in the same room, but they are participating and owning their tasks in a virtual space. So, and it's important that that's not forgotten about. You know, the digital platform doesn't relinquish any of the commitments, or it doesn't take any of the ownership away from the person who has added that task, because part of the design of VisiLean as well is that contractors and organizations own their tasks, and they're the only ones who can update them. So that's the kind of a safety net that we have. But also what we have in a big room environment is transparency. You know, on the left-hand side, we have everybody talking collaboratively and being open. And that transparency builds trust, and that builds the team and develops the culture that we need to implement Lean. Because if we can't make commitments and we can't honor commitments, you know, they have to be freely given, and you have to have the tools in place, you know, the constraints that have to be identified, the make-ready needs to honor your commitments. So again, digitally, we have this platform to show everybody's commitments, and everybody has full transparency of the look ahead sequence. So they have an opportunity to discuss with each other the processes. I suppose I'll just go into a kind of a case study. Like we've talked about the idea behind lean construction, about developing the culture, but we are using technology to help our last planning process. And we focus very much on the short-term look-ahead phase, but we do have a reference to our strategic plan. So our strategic plan is our baseline plan, our single plan, you know, the single source of truth, as was mentioned before. And that's the plan actually I'm pointing at in that picture. You know, that's the one that we baseline, that's the one that we reference, and that's one where we try to get ahead of, you know. And using short-term planning allows us to do that. But also digitizing the process as well allows teams, multidisciplinary teams, to work remotely, as I said here. And they can, you know, we have that volume of knowledge that we have in the big room environment, but we have it more often. It's not a unique gathering. It happens almost fortnightly to get everybody involved, and that level of interaction allows teams to really work together, and it gives us an opportunity to remove constraints, to get the right directions, to make the site conditions, get the sequencing right, and allows people to make accurate commitments. And this is kind of where we bring it all together in our last planner process. You know, this is our declaration every Thursday, where we and the supply chain and everyone involved has an opportunity to declare our work. So different, obviously the project that I'm referencing is a large multi-million pound data center. There's vast areas that are coordinated and sequenced together. So it's like having 6 or 7 mini projects within one project. So this is where we come together to declare our work. So it shows where we interact with each other. It shows that we consider all our safety and quality aspects. So we know that the drawings are correct. We know our tech subs are right. We know our sequencing is right. We know our materials are available, and we know our resources are available. And this kind of communication then is going up to declare, these are your works for the week. There's no barriers or blockers to stop you doing the work. And everyone has an understanding or an expectation of who's going to be working with them in an area. And this same sort of process is done now, obviously, in our current situation with COVID-19. The big room physical environment is difficult to maintain, and it's something we don't do. So we do like a Zoom meeting or a Microsoft Team meetings, but we're able to share the process. The principle is still the same, that we work through our mini projects, make sure our commitments that we are declaring for the week are achievable and measurable. So, you know, it's the learning process that you get from the last planner, I think, is something that really helps develop the culture of the practice. And this is, we bring our same plans down onto our daily huddles, as we call them, the daily activity briefings. Our same plan that we've referenced against our strategic baseline plan is brought down to the teams. The teams still own these plans, and they get up every morning and they declare their works in their areas. So, you know, we communicate very well with each other. We use these visual aids. We use the live processing to show how we're progressing. And this allows, you know, again, companies to build trust at every level. So this is at site level, they're building trust. We've seen in other examples on the screen where at owner level, director level, we build trust, and then at manager level, we're building trust, but we're all working to the same information and the same platform. You know, this is just a check-in. It's a brief 15, 20 minutes structured agenda going through what you've already planned. We don't replan works. We generally don't change works. It's just a confirming and checking in and everything is okay. You know, everything is the way you expect it to be. And again, it's just teams checking in with each other. And these guys own their plans, and they're, you know, they come up and they're fully aware of what they're doing, and they're fully aware of what their other trades are doing with them, you know, and they're able to work and communicate and help each other out. And that's the real good thing about this, that it sort of removes the conflict. It's not an arbitrarial or confrontational approach to working. Everyone has declared their works, and they have an opportunity to help each other get these works. So it's building the team trust at all levels. And visual management is something that helps a lot. So, you know, in the 4D aspect, we were able to track and visually show our productivity. The colors up on the screen shows the different stages of each element that we were building, and we can manage that and use again that communication skill. Bhargav showed on the mobile app how people can start and progress their projects throughout the day. So it's important that it gives us an opportunity to capitalize on early starts, or it gives us an opportunity to manage risk if things are going late. So we using this information as a learning curve, you know. So with that, we were able to improve our productivity in some of our areas by, you know, removing the labor by 75%, removing the working at heights almost by 80%. You know, modularizing some of the works took all the workload out of the particular data halls and brought them into factories. So we were able to sequence and coordinate works much better. So there's other benefits. You know, we're always constantly challenging the teams to come up with modern methods of construction, and because they are familiar with the plans and the direction, we get a lot of bottom-up information and ways that will work to improve the productivity and to improve our work processes. And this is a really good sort of workflow. You know, the weekly planning system, I think we mentioned about our baby steps. You know, when we do our strategic plan, there's a lot of assumptions based. You know, there's a lot of instructions, maybe contractual agreements, design agreements. But, you know, we highlight where we are with these things, and we make our initial plans, our short range plans, based on our best available knowledge. So we check how we're performing. And, you know, it's not to be afraid of PPC. You can learn a lot from a 60% PPC, a lot more than you would maybe from an 85 or 90% PPC. You're showing where you're, you know, are you challenging your construction? Are you challenging your teams? Are we quantifying the works? Are we, you know, providing the right work areas? So we're, you know, it gives us an opportunity to improve. So we look at this information. So with the last planner system, using it. You know, you have the PDCA, the plan, do, check, act system embedded in the culture. So every week, every day, we're checking what we're doing and what we're not doing well. And we're able to relate that back to the why, what's not working, reference it back to our strategic plan. Are we ahead of the plan? Are we behind the plan? And then use our KPIs. You know, we use our safety information. Are we up to date in our observations? We use our package program information. We check our lead-in times. We check our labor histograms, check our cash flow, earned value. You know, these metrics would add up, and it gives us this information, you know, we use to improve. What is the concern? Is it labor? Is it information? What is stopping us achieving the condition? What countermeasures can we do? So, you know, as a cycle, we can use these tools within the weekly process of the last planner system to improve. And this brings people along. You know, if people are listened to in the field, they take ownership of it. They you know, they're proud of their works. Everybody wants to do their works and do it to the best of their ability. And if we can show and assist that we have multidisciplinary teams all working together in the same direction, it really gathers momentum. You know, so as I said before, it's baby steps, but you need a plan first. You need a plan that can be measured, and then, you know, you need to identify opportunities for improvement and stretch the targets. So again, this is probably a summary.
Just one comment, Kevin. Could you just please come back to the previous slide?
Yeah.
It's just very interesting to notice that in every role, almost all the roles, you have an opportunity or something to improve.
Yeah.
You do. We have the opportunity to improve what you said as the first comment that Bruno brought is baby steps. So in each step you have one opportunity or the chance to make something better. That's directly connected with the lean approach, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's continuous improvement. And, you know, you have to set your plans, and they have to be measurable plans. So you know, they need to be something that you can actually say at the end of the week, did you complete the task or did you not complete the task? So that's another challenge in itself. You know, it's getting people to make those commitments that can be measurable. Because as we said, people don't like being measured. We do like planning. We like to show that we know how to do the job. But the challenge is to create a learning environment where people can feel safe to fail, if you like. To use that word is to fail to achieve, but it's not meaning that it was a poor plan in the first place. You have an opportunity to improve your plan. So creating that learning environment is really important to let people develop, you know, and promote their own lean journey.
Yeah, exactly. I believe that.
And I think that's here, like, you know, there's two arrows at the top. One is the customer insight, and the bottom one is customer value. And customer value, you know, their values are generally, you know, safety, quality, cost, and delivery, you know. But in order to get that value, we need to understand what they see as value, what's their conditions of satisfaction, and that's the customer insight. And with that, with the people you build, you know, you share your values, you share your successful behaviors, you encourage continuous learning, and you promote a collaborative environment. You know, so you're creating a learning environment for people to safely work together and to safely grow together. And the product that we described in the last planner system is the client engagement designed for offsite assembly and manufacture, value engineering, streamlining the flow, always, you know, improving your plan. And the process is on site, you know, the end-to-end optimization, waste reduction, remove the 8 wastes. Visual management is key, and the last planner as the learning tool and the production tool. And that will ultimately give the performance that I think everybody wants to, you know, everybody wants to be involved in a successful client, and what, regardless if you're designer, client, supply chain, or principal contractor. So it's the building the shared values and building the learning environment to improve the culture. And that is it for me, I think. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Kevin. I I would say I would love to have the opportunity to work in that digital command room you have. It's incredible.
It is. It's very good. It works very well.
It must be wonderful to see everything on screens and with the up-to-date information. And it's amazing having it. It's wonderful. Would you just explain which kind of project is that exactly? In this
it is a data center project. So
data center.
Yeah. So it's a hyperscale data center. So for one of the large multinationals, I would be able to tell you the megawatts, but I've forgotten them. I should have wrote that down. But it's an ongoing process. I think for 4 years or 5 years working on multiple phases of this campus. So this team actually has been together for quite a long time, and I think, you know, we've worked, or I suppose grown into a successful team. So we're able to adapt to these challenges. So, you know, the lean process is started. It's not technology. It's, you know, it's getting the right culture there. And I think that the learning environment, I think, is the key one, you know, that you're able to show your vulnerabilities or that you don't know everything. It's important to show that, you know, you can learn and develop as a team to produce a quality project.
Considering that first question that we got from the German Lean Construction Institute, do you believe that this team specific has already a lean culture?
Yeah, there's definitely a lean culture, and I think it what didn't start like that. It's something that you have to develop and work with. You know,
yeah.
The way we're brought together typically is, you know, maybe the contractual agreement, you know, you're really, supply chains have to manage their own risks, and main contractors manage the risks as well. Even design teams are managing risks. So it's to develop that transparency and trust, to probably share the risk really does help, you know, and that does take time. But it can be done with constantly checking in and making reliable commitments and then tracking those reliable commitments. So it's important to follow those commitments through.
It's very interesting when we have like 3 presentations that bring their own experience, but they can connect each other as we have today. And just bringing back the benefits that Bruno brought from his experience, that was better control, focus on activities and commitment, collaboration, and how this collaboration increased during the lean implementation, and also the organizational culture. And then Bhargav brought that people and process come first, maybe people before, then process together. Then afterwards, you bring the technology. And Kevin says that transparency brings trust. And that is something that the technology enable if we look for the case you brought from MACE. Would you like to bring some opinions, some comments about this link that I made now?
So I might start. To be honest with you, Bernardo, I took the same notes-ish. I was thinking about what we shared, you know, what the value shared within our presentations, and you are absolutely right. Though transparency of information and transparency of and the quality of the information was, you know, it was key on our 3 presentations. And also the whole thing that we need to improve our process, and with this process improvement comes commitment, and it comes, you know, people agreeing and trusting each other, so we can keep improving the process. And then comes technology to wrap it up and say, yes, we can trust each other. This is the information, this is the transparency that you want, you know, on time, real time, and everything else. I think you made a good summary of it, to be honest.
Thank you. Kevin, would you like to comment something?
No, it was very interesting, actually, you know, that I was the last presentation, but the guys touched on the fundamentals of generating teams and the question about honoring commitments. And I think Bruno made a point that you put your sticky note on the wall, you own that sticky note, you know, that's yours and it's precious. You know, it's important that people feel respected to give their opinions and to make these commitments. And I think that develops then with other trades and other partners, if you know they can see they're honoring their commitments and they're doing their best to match those commitments. I think adding the technology, we're able to spread the net, you know, to show these commitments over a wider field and integrate multi-discipline people to get everybody involved in the honoring the commitments, because the make ready process is where the client and designers really come in to make sure that these commitments can be honored, you know, that they're the right specifications, the right drawings, the right materials. So it's good to show that the principles are right. It's not technology, the lean principles are there, but the technology can enhance it then. And if you use the technology correctly, you can really improve your productivity.
It's everything connected with motivating and pushing people together, right?
It is. It's motivating and showing that there's a secure environment. You know, I think it's important psychologically for people to be able to make a commitment and maybe not honor the commitment and show why their weakness, you know, would feel like a weakness. It's why they failed, what it didn't work, and then that trust and transparency will show they're not trying to blame somebody else. They're showing, okay, this is where we can improve. So as I showed in that slide, as you pointed out, there's obviously an opportunity to improve on anything that doesn't work, you know. So that's the kind of learning environment that people need to build the trust to create that.
Wonderful. I have one question that I left before, but I think that it makes sense bringing for everybody. It's a specific question for Bhargav from, let me just check the name. Sorry, I took a note. From Parth. He asks, is there any major barrier to implement the Lean in India? But I think that could be a question for any country that we had the opportunity to work.
Yeah, no, actually, that's I mean, it's a question that, you know, we can go on and on about, because there are lots of, you know, there is a lot of research that has been done, like barriers to implement lean in construction. From practical perspective in India, we have a kind of, the key thing is about culture. You know, we just spoke about that, and in India, traditionally on construction projects, it's a very much command and control kind of a culture. So it's very top driven, lots of hierarchies, and you pretty much, you do as you're told rather than you can contribute to the plan and things like that. So that's one of the key barriers in lean in India, and pretty much anywhere where you have this sort of a traditional culture. I mean, this is a very gross sort of generalization. So I mean, you know, you have lots of companies in India who are very switched on, and they are actually changing how they operate and they work. There is an Indian Lean Construction Institute now, and they're trying to change that. But what I'm talking about is kind of in general. Whereas in other countries, we still get companies who can be on that spectrum. So, you know, that's one of the key barriers, where you have that sort of deep-rooted sort of command control type of culture. That's kind of the key thing for me. Once you overcome that barrier, I mean, I actually almost wanted to say this in the last point you spoke about. When I moved to Finland, this was my very interesting observations, because we were running a project that was called BIM for Lean. And the first task that I had on my hand as a project manager was to go around construction companies and asking them what sort of lean processes they follow. And quite a lot of companies came back to me and said, stop talking about this already, you know, don't please, you know, I mean, we do this, we don't call it lean anymore. It's completely integrated within our culture. We don't have to talk about lean anymore. So don't talk about lean. We do it, you know. So, and there was like, okay, I don't have anything to do here. Why did I even come? So no, just, you know, there were lots of new things then that we could do because of that platform that they had built. But the point being that it just depends on how you have sort of progress. But yeah, that's my observation now. So once you progress to that point, you don't have to call it lean, it just becomes part of the DNA of that company. So
Yeah, I've been in India for the IGLC in 2018, and I got very impressed about what some companies are doing, considering lean being and all the management improvements into construction. But if you consider like making a connection with Brazilian reality, for example, we have very good and very well-developed companies considering technology, considering lean implementation. But for sure, we have a huge difference in the leverage scale. Considering we have different kind of companies, different regions, a huge population. India even larger than Brazil.
Yeah.
So I would say that if you compare it with Europe, that you have a different kind of social organization in the countries and the size of the countries as well. We would say that in those countries, you have more a leverage construction management approach than when you look for huge countries on different economic development index, as India, as Brazil. And then for sure, you have the huge difference considering the construction sector in those countries.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree.
Yeah. I have one question that's directly for Kevin. And I think that is considering also the Kaizen methodology and how to improve, is how are MACE transforming the opportunities for improvement into practice?
Yeah, okay. So we challenge the team so that we don't, we give opportunities. Like we're looking at different methodologies, like using more technology, maybe using more offsite fabrication. So, we challenge our teams to come up with new plans and take time off the schedule, take costs off the schedule, maybe improve safety. It's not always down to cost. We talk about what value is for a project. Is it a safer project? But the project we have here is the safest project that was ever in the Irish state. So safety is a huge part that we have, and we're very proud of it. So we develop some productivity models to improve our safety. So if we can eliminate works from the construction site out into a prefabrication yard, it may not have any cost benefit, but it's a safety benefit, it's improved benefit, and it's improved methods of working. So, the ability to improve, we do have the workshops, we do have our constraints and blockers logs, and we do have, we get the teams in then to remove these, and we show them, that there is an opportunity to improve, but then we have to go through the iterations to see, okay, does it affect design? Does it affect cost? Does it affect safety? So, a lot of the ideas don't get through, but a lot of them do, and they make a huge benefit. And again, you can see that the pride again from the teams are after coming up with this innovative solution, and that the fact that some of these solutions do get through and come into practice promotes more. It enhances the culture. And it does show that there's no idea that can't evolve into some other idea. So it's important to show the risks and opportunities, and then let them grow. If there's opportunities there, get people in, get some traction behind them, and show we can develop them into improvements on the project.
Great. It's also to understand and capture opportunities and put it in an action plan and for a continuous improvement. Wonderful. Guys, I think we reached the time. Almost, yeah, we are done with the time. I'll let you a few minutes to say goodbye, and any other subject you would like to address for the audience. We are still with more than 60 persons connected. It's great. So, and we have like thousands of applause here in our chat. You could say it later on YouTube. So feel free to say your last words, and I'd like to thank you one more time. Thank you to everybody that is watching us. I hope you can, as soon as possible, meet us together in the next IGLC. that won't be this year, unfortunately. That would be on cloud, but for sure would be a great event again. But let's see if next year you can meet together here in Cusco. And yeah, feel free to say the last words for everybody here. Thank you one more time.
All right, shall I go first then? Bernardo, thank you very much for the invite. Bhargav and Kevin, a pleasure to share this live with you guys. Thanks for everyone who's was watching. I think it was great. I think we had 3 great presentations about how Lean works, right? That you don't have to. I know it's a long journey. Sometimes it's a hard journey because you need to change minds. But I think if you focus well on the process and on people, you can get great results, as Kevin showed. And then once you have that on your culture, you can bring VisiLean and make the high tech and have information up on your hand. So I think it's I think it was a great demonstration that it works. Takes time, but if you keep people committed to the process, we can get truly benefits out of it. So thank you, and hope to see you all soon in person.
Thanks. Same here. Actually, I would like to once again thank Bernardo, and it was fantastic to be in this company. Actually, it's so good, and we have this connection. Yeah, and great presentations. In terms of the message, those who are doing Lean already, keep going, and those who haven't started yet, start now. There is never been a better time to start doing Lean. So absolutely, yeah.
Exactly, Bhargav. Never is late.
Okay, well, thanks again, Bernardo, for the opportunity to speak, and obviously Bruno and Bhargav. It was great to present with you. Some great presentations, and it was great to hear experiences from way back, to show the development of it. And I think that's the message for any new guys coming on to try the Lean journey. It is a developmental process. It's a system there that will help you to improve, and the fact that you're listening here is showing that you've identified that there's things that we need to improve in construction, so you're already on the right step. So I can wish everybody the best of luck, and thanks again for having me.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Have a good afternoon, evening, whatever. Take care. See you later, and thank you very much one more time.
Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.